Well, now what are we supposed to do?
No Adam, the boss took everything we own.
Not quite everything. Wait here. He didn't see this because it was hidden under 3 decades of dust.
What the hell is that?
I think I've played one of these before. It's called a typewriter.
Nope. Let me hook it up. Check this out.
Oh God, shut it off!
Ah, my ears!
This, my friends, is the sound of childhood euphoria.
That didn't sound like Go-Go Power Rangers at all.
It sounds like an internet.
Sounds like a robot being sacrificed to Satan.
It sounds like an elephant sat on a Game Boy.
Sounds like what happens to the AOL guy every time you boot up.
It sounds like I got in a fight with my TV and lost. What the hell was wrong with your childhood? Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Retro Odyssey. I'm your host Ryan, joined by co-host Matt and Steven.
Hi.
Hello.
I'll be taking over as host from here on out, as Adam has gone his separate ways. Say right now we're going to miss him, but we're going to keep on plugging along, and maybe we'll see him in the future. Besides that, episode 24, is that what we're on now?
Yep.
Good lord. That's a lot. I honestly didn't think we were going to get this far.
Kind of took off, didn't it?
Did a little bit. Maybe if the listener base can take off a little bit more, we'll be going somewhere. Hollywood, here we come. But hey, beside that, how have you guys been doing this last month?
I mean, I don't have much to talk about.
I know on the sidelines, it's you've had a little bit of a rough month.
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about what I've been playing.
How have games been doing this month? How about that instead?
I've played a shitload of Knights of the Old Republic in the last 3 days. Great game to play while you're sick because you're, stuck in one place for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, and then you're also bedridden too.
Yeah.
No, really, Knights of the Old Republic is one of the only RPGs that I've actually sat down and gone wow, I really like this. Let me clarify. One of the only BioWare RPGs, because it's absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one's better.
So, I think the second one is mechanically better. I think the writing is better in the first one.
I can see that because, my one and only issue with Knights of the Old Republic, it's literally the only one I have, and I think we've mentioned this before because this is not the first time it's come up. It's so hard to be Sith in that game.
Right, and it you feel awful, and that's something that wasn't entirely worked out in KOTOR 2. It wasn't until Mass Effect that you really, that
being evil was a thing you could do.
Right. Well, and KOTOR 2 wasn't even made by BioWare, so there's that. But the story in KOTOR 2 has some elements that are more interesting than parts of KOTOR, the original KOTOR, but I'm always going to stand for Drew Karpyshyn as a writer because he's one of my favorites, and he was the primary writer for the Mass Effect series originally and the original KOTOR.
Well, when you're good at something.
Exactly. When you're good at something, you end up leaving the project in disgust when the studio gets ridiculous.
Yeah. Of course, then sometimes when you have times you get like what's his name who did Mega Man, and it's like oh yeah, we're not gonna make any more Mega Man games. He's like, fine, then I'll go make my own Mega Man game, and then he went and made a really really terrible Mega Man style game,
Yeah.
and then Capcom was like, time to make a Mega Man game, and Mega Man 11's really good.
It's like bitch slap.
And it's like, there's a reason they didn't let you do this anymore. Anyway, what about you, Matt?
Surprising no one. I've pretty much just been playing Final Fantasy 14 and Binding of Isaac still this month. They're always kind of like my go-to games, and I've not really branched out too much this month. I did want to try getting a bit further into Nier Automata, but I didn't really have time. So I ended up just playing those two. And I've not really done much else this month, to be honest.
Nothing wrong with relying on Old Faithful.
Yeah.
Personally, I've played this last month a lot of Mario 64. I really think it is just... I've reassessed. It's the best Mario game. And I've been getting more into, like, I'd say casual speedrunning it.
I also played a significant amount of Mario 64 until I finished it, and then I started playing Sunshine.
And that's a really hard shift to go from Mario 64 to Sunshine, like, back to back.
Yeah.
Like, I used to like Sunshine so much, and I still do. It's still a good game. But when I did that 24-hour charity stream in, I guess that was November.
Mm.
I played Mario 60. Well, I played Mario Sunshine, and then I played Mario 64 immediately afterward, and it's really rough because Mario 64 is so tight, and Sunshine is it's not. It's everything Mario 64 isn't where you don't want it to be.
Right.
And that sounds like I'm ripping on the game. It's just that they're very different games. And I think it's part of the reason, as I've been getting more into the speedrunning, I found out that the Mario Sunshine speedrun community is not very big. And
Yeah,
it's for
because
stuff like that.
well, and also because like you can't do shines out of order, except for the like I think you can skip the first one in Bianco Hills.
Yep. You can't really do shines out of order. There's long cutscenes. There's no real exploits to take to like really advance the game or mechanics to really boost you along.
Yeah, it's basically so the scene. I actually did a little bit of research on this. The scene is basically just the 100% runs, and there's only like 3 or 4 guys that do it.
Yep, it's a little weird. Meanwhile, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people playing Mario 64,
Right.
trying to put themselves somewhere on that leaderboard. It's pretty ridiculous.
I've never played Sunshine myself, but I do love 64.
I recommend playing Sunshine if you can get your hands on it for less than $60.
Oh, I've got it for what you call it, for GameCube.
Oh, you haven't? You haven't played it yet?
Not yet.
Okay, you need to get on that.
You need to get on that. It's because
Like, so the game is worth playing. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad game because it's not. It's very clearly a different game than 64, Galaxy, Odyssey. It feels different. It, Flood changes the entire game. It's still a good game. It's just, I don't think it's as good as, the 64, Odyssey, Galaxy.
Yeah.
we're trying really hard here not to say Mario Sunshine is a bad game.
Yeah, because like for years, that's all I heard was how Sunshine was horrible, and the GameCube was horrible, and I'm like, but I thought it was okay.
Well, and I think my issue, because Sunshine was my favorite 3D Mario game for a long time, even more so than Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Odyssey came out, and it just completely changed all my opinions. And then I went back and played 64 a lot, and basically I got good at 64. And then I played Sunshine. It was like, oh my, this was... I think the reason I liked it so much is because it's very forgiving and I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not necessarily a jab at the game, but it definitely appeals to a certain skill level, I would say. Like, because if you're really good at Mario 64, you can kind of do anything you want to and go anywhere you want to.
Yeah. And, that same spirit is what they built into Odyssey with the hat jumping.
And then when you get into Sunshine, it's like that's very much... I mean, you can go a lot of places, but it's all built around the flood mechanic, which is cool and fun, but it's not like any of the Mario games. Again, doing my best here to not just say Mario Sunshine is bad. Because honestly, I don't believe it is in my heart.
We really should have saved this discussion for one of the episodes where we talk about these games.
Yeah. We'll revisit it here probably eventually. Maybe we'll do a dedicated Mario episode. There's enough games. Oh, yeah, man. I'll make you all play Mario is Missing. That's technically a Luigi game. I'll figure out how to do the Philips CDI Mario Bros. Game.
Oh my God.
I'll be that guy. But anyway, totally went off track. I played a lot of Mario this month.
I know that you've played Metroid Prime as well. I caught a couple of your streams.
Oh yeah, I need to finish that up, but then I got sick, and it's just like I'm not going to sit down in a game that's going to engross me for an hour or two when I'm having to make frequent sick trips.
I noticed you had your webcam on as well, and it's like in the 2 years that I've known you, that is only the second time I've seen your face, because you've got one picture, which is obviously quite old, on your Facebook page, and that's it.
I was say, I think that picture that was on that you... God, I don't really take pictures. I think that picture on my Facebook page is from like 2000. That might be 2015, 15 or 16 at the latest.
See, I'm kind of like that. I don't take a lot of pictures, but because I just got married, there's a whole lot of new pictures.
Yeah, you have all... Yeah, I was about to say, but you got married, now there's like 40 billion pictures.
Yeah.
So I hope you like having your picture taken, because that was going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, but no. Otherwise, I'm that guy that I change my profile picture like once every few years. Mm-hmm. I've been through entire relationships where my profile picture never changed, and the person actually complained about that, and I'm like, "What do you want? I don't take pictures."
Who are you dating here? Facebook or me? It was probably Facebook.
Well, I mean, would have been a better relationship, that's for damn sure.
There you go. If you just see, you need those clarifications in the very beginning. It's actually really funny. I didn't have a Facebook when I met my hopefully officially soon ex-wife. I just didn't have Facebook. I had it before, and I got rid of it because I'm like, shit, I don't really need this. I don't really even like it. And I got rid of it, and it was just like, wow, I'm free. I don't have any obligations to check Facebook. And then she's like, you need to get Facebook. I'm like, why? And she's like, because blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, okay, well, fine, I'll get Facebook again. So I got Facebook again, and now the only reason I'm still on there is because I guess I don't even really manage the Odyssey Facebook page, to be honest. That's mostly you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for most of the updates on
it. But is my other group, Tiger? I do that. So I'm head of that right now. So now I have Facebook, and it's like, man, I just really want to get rid of Facebook as a whole. And now I have obligations. It's like a second job.
You're like that guy from Hunchback of Notre Dame that gets out of the stocks. And he's like, I'm free. Oof, dang it. And he's stuck in something else.
Thank you. I hadn't thought about that in a while. Anyway, now we've gone way off track. Facebook is garbage. And follow us on our Facebook page.
It's garbage, but not garbage enough.
Not garbage. If you have Facebook and you don't mind Facebook, follow us on our Facebook page. And also follow us on our Twitter page at Odyssey Retro.
And we now have a new, easy-to-remember website domain as well.
We do.
RetroOdysseyPodcast.com.
Versus Retro Odyssey and then a long string of numbers as it was before.
And that is a good URL.
We would have liked to have RetroOdyssey.com, but there's a very smelly RV company that make custom RVs, which for some reason decided that Retro Odyssey would be a good name for their business, which doesn't make any sense.
Like Odyssey, yeah, it's an RV going on a trip. Retro, like, do they customize old RVs? Do they think that RVs are like a thing that people don't buy anymore?
I don't know. That's the reason our Facebook page is Retro Odyssey Podcast as well, because they've got Retro Odyssey on that.
Yeah, and they also have it on Twitter as well, which is why we are Odyssey Retro.
Wait, I thought Adam had it on Twitter.
No, he was using his personal Twitter for it for a minute.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't realize that, and I had gone and made a proper Twitter for us, and then he would just... I told him that, and he's like, well, I have this handle. He says, okay, if we have to. And then he just switched back. So now...
Ah, okay.
So, Steven, follow us on Twitter at Odyssey Retro. See, this is called self-advertising.
Well, and you know what? It's not that unusual for the stuff to be different.
No, it's not terribly. But it's still a little annoying. Well, with the news of a new website and apparently Steven learning that we have a dedicated Twitter handle, let's flow into the actual news. Well, first up in the news is it appears Final Fantasy VII Remake has been delayed again.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not by much, to be fair. It's only been put back 3 weeks, but yes, it has been delayed.
Well, it's just crazy because this game has been, like, the game was teased back, way on back.
Like, wasn't it E3 2015? Or was that when it was announced?
That might have been when it was announced, honestly, because I want to say that they teased this back for the PS3, when the PS3 was new.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, this is something people have been demanding for years and years and years. And, you know, personally, I'm just fine with the original. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't care about graphics.
But it's going to be a completely different game, though. Honestly, it'll have the same story, but it's going to be a different game. But yeah, 5 years and it got delayed another few weeks. It's like, holy cow. It had better be good. That's all I can say is with this much delay and this much dev time, it had better be good.
Well, it's only like a fifth of the game as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but hey, if you're looking forward to it, you just have to look forward to it a bit longer. Anticipation is the best part anyway.
It has unfortunately kind of moved itself into a month where a lot of stuff is coming out.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing too, because like I don't think it's gonna hurt it that much.
I mean, it helps that Cyberpunk has been delayed, because I think a lot of the same people that would have been buying 7 are the same people that would have been buying Cyberpunk, because they are both kind of like RPGs that I think appeal to the same kind of audience, because 7's kind of like very Cyberpunk as well.
Oh man, imagine if Final Fantasy VII Remake had Keanu Reeves. That's just an infinite money generator at that point.
Yeah.
What else we got on the docket? We had a Devil May Cry collection announced for Switch.
We did actually speak about that
or
last
was it
month.
Just? Oh, did we? Oh no, or was it just DMC3?
DMC3 Special Edition is coming out in February.
I should probably pick these up on Switch. I've only played DMC4, I believe, is the one I played, and it's okay.
I've started the first one a couple of times. Never got very far because I'm bad at games. But I mean, I have them all in 360. I'll probably end up getting them on Xbox One.
I'm gonna wait until they're out on Switch and then pick them all up.
Well, it's nice because like Devil May Cry, I wouldn't say that it defined a genre, but like it definitely helped seed it.
Yeah.
with the whole would you qualify DMC as a glamour brawler,
Spectacle Fighter?
a spectacle fighter? Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like hack and slash as well. I don't think Bayonetta would exist without Devil May Cry.
Well, absolutely not.
No, and like other games spawned from Devil May Cry as far as just that whole crazy thing, like not necessarily a super great game, but Dante's Inferno wouldn't have happened without DMC.
Right.
Actually, we had a lot of stuff come out of that Switch announcement or that Switch Direct. We also had the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Yep, that's coming out on March 6th.
Which is it's a shame that we didn't get that announcement a little bit sooner to drop that on the Pokemon episode.
Right.
But it is what it is. Hardware. The Hyperkin is dropping the Retron Junior. It is a micro retro console, plays all Game Boy games, which would be Game Boy, Color, Advance. Well, I guess that's all of them now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But it plays all of them, and it looks like it actually upscales. It does HD upscaling for them. So you don't get, like, nasty visuals on your HD TV.
Right.
There's been no price point dropped yet. But assuming that, like, and I'm super hesitant because Hyperkin is, like, hit and miss on their products. The Retron 6, you have a Retron 6, don't you, Matt?
5.
Or Retron, not the Retron 6, the Retron 5. Like, that's a solid piece of hardware.
The Retron 3, not so much.
Yeah, the Retron 3 is kind of a piece of hot garbage. Hyperkin controllers are super hit and miss on quality. Some of them are really good, other ones are really terrible, and I don't understand.
Yeah.
The controller that came with the Retron 5, I mean, Steven will be able to tell you as well, is absolute garbage.
Oh, it looks bad.
Well, see, I can't tell you anything about the controllers that came with the 3 because they didn't friggin' work.
Well, that tells you a lot right there.
Like, so
But
I
also-
haven't seen those things in years.
But also their controllers, like, and the controllers that came with the Retron 3, the I don't know why they're so bad, but they just have a really hard time. They're like super basic controllers. It's a D-pad and buttons. Shouldn't be very hard.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wireless. Like, just give us a wire. It's half the fun anyway, is getting your feet tangled around the wire.
Well, see, that's the thing is like I'm usually super up on wireless stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
but it's gotta work.
Oh. Speaking of wires, I ordered up a batch of Retro Fighter Brawler 64 controllers. Now, I had one.
Yes.
I had one of them. It's fantastic. I wanted to get another one, plus I ordered some for some friends. The new batch that they come out with has even longer wires.
Nice.
And I don't mean by like an inch or two. Like there's probably an extra 6-7 inches of cable on these things. Like it's substantial.
Did the new batch already have the fix for the R and L or the L in there?
Okay, so the L button problem that you were having, I think, was a problem that was exclusive to the very, very first batch of controllers that came out.
Yeah, like during the Kickstarter
Yeah,
release,
they fixed that on actual release.
Right, and they basically offered to fix any of ours for free, and I was like, it's not really that big of an issue because I'm not.
How often you press L?
Well, and not even that. It's how often am I pressing L and using the stick? So
Yeah. But, like, yeah, they fixed that one on actual release, and then they went and made the cables even longer. What I'd like to see them is figure out, I don't know why, but it seems like it works with Rumble Pack. It does not work with the Game Boy expansion pack for, like, Pokemon Coliseum and the like.
yeah, that's the only one it doesn't work with.
I'm also pretty confident it doesn't work very well with memory cards.
Oh, I hadn't tried it with the memory card.
Like, the memory packs, it just doesn't seem to work super well with. On my old one, I'll try the new one, see if there's an improvement.
Right.
I don't know what it is. Maybe my memory packs are 20 years old at this point. older than 20 years old, 25 years old almost, 24 years old, 1996.
Right.
Somewhere right in there. They just don't like to work. They could just be dead. I replaced the batteries, but like the actual hardware itself just might be done. So we'll see. I don't have Pokemon Coliseum anyway. I wouldn't even be able to check that if I wanted to.
I mean, like they said up front that was that what wasn't gonna work with it like ever.
Yeah.
Because there's only a few games that do it, and they're all Pokemon games.
Yeah. I mean, it was a cool idea, though.
I mean, it's something that I wish more games had implemented. It's just,
Right.
One news story which we completely forgot to mention last month, which I'm embarrassed about because it's my favorite game series as well. Got a remake of Resident Evil 3.
Oh, yeah.
And it's coming out like soon.
Did we miss that one?
I'm pretty sure we completely forgot to mention that.
Huh.
And it's out the same month as Final Fantasy VII. Everything is coming out in April. Doom is coming out in April as well.
Trials of Mana.
Yeah. Doom.
And Animal Crossing.
And I mean, that's a big game, but not for me.
Animal Crossing is March 20th.
Hope you're gonna get some bonuses on those checks. Or some overtime.
I am definitely looking forward to Resident Evil 3 because the remake of 2, which came out last year, was fantastic. And Resident Evil 3, definitely, it looks to be of like the same quality.
The Resident Evil 2 remake was like a proper, like, over-the-shoulder, in the air of the newest Resident Evil games, correct? Like 6 and 7.
7 is first person. But yeah.
But like that's
like
the
5 and 6.
I was gonna say that's the style they were in.
Yeah.
So like, and I remember when we covered Resident Evil, I mostly just hated it because of the motion mechanic, like the movement mechanics. Like that's
tank controls are bad.
Tank controls are bad. Like the atmosphere was amazing, the tank controls were bad. So I'm thinking I think I need to pick up Resident Evil 2 and actually enjoy the game with the new layout. And if Resident Evil 3 is being made in the same exact way, I bet I would like that too.
Yeah, the trailers look brilliant. They did actually release an update for Resident Evil 2, which actually adds, at one point in the game, you can hear the Nemesis saying stars as you kind of like walk past a certain area, because 2 and 3 do kind of like happen concurrently. I mean, 3 happens like before and after 2. There's like a gap in the middle while Joel's unconscious. So they do happen at the same time. So they added that little update into 2 just to kind of like
link them,
tease 3 and
nice,
and kind of like tie those 2 games together. But it is something I'm definitely looking forward to. 3 out of the first 3 games, 3 is my least favorite, but we'll see what the remake does. They've obviously gone with like new character models for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Jill's, I'm kind of, I don't know about Jill.
She doesn't look quite right.
I mean, the one thing about Jill that kind of like carried over from the remake of 1 all the way along, she's got very distinct eyes, and you can always tell it's Jill from the eyes. Like in 1, in 5, Revelations, she's just got these very distinct eyes, and they've kind of like done away with that in the remake of 3.
That's odd.
Yeah, but I mean, you can still tell it's her, like from the outfit mainly.
Right.
But yeah, they have kind of like gone completely different. Although they did the same thing with Chris in 7 as well. He looked like nothing like any of his previous iterations. But it is what it is. It's not going to affect the game in any way.
No, that's what happens. You get creative teams on there. It's all good. I'm sure there are other things that they could just drastically obliterate.
Very true.
Well, it looks like they're doing kind of like enhanced AI for Nemesis. Similar to how Mr. X worked in 2, but they're going to have him kind of like stalk Jill throughout the game. So it's going to be like quite tense. I think he can like appear anywhere. And if you've played the remake of 2, it's whenever Mr. X is around, you just hear like this thudding footstep, like this really slow, heavy footstep. And it's just like ramps up the tension like a hell of a lot. And you do get the feeling that you're just being kind of like stalked by this unstoppable force. And Nemesis is a tyrant with a rocket launcher. So you're going to want to be avoiding him as much as possible.
Right. Well, and it's always a good thing, like keeping the tension high there, because it's like in the original Resident Evil games, a lot of the tension was developed through very scarce amounts of ammo and health. And then also just what's around the next corner. Oh, shit, it's a zombie. Well, now I'm in an awkward position and maybe try to shoot him, or most of the time it's turn around, run down the hall, and reapproach now that I know what's around the corner. When something's following you, and especially if in Resident Evil 3, if he can just appear at any time, nothing's even remotely scripted.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there are times when he can't appear, but I mean, in terms of like he'll be able to follow her, and like it's probably going to be like different times each playthrough where you actually see him, but there will still be like the scripted. I'm sure like the first time you see him is going to be scripted, and a lot of the fights with him are going to be scripted as well. But he can just kind of like appear in a place and follow you around.
Speaking of survival horror and apparently there has been some sort, I found an article on it. There's been some sort of leaked information about a potential side-scrolling Metroid game being made, and it might have something to do with fusion.
That I am very interested in.
So it might have something to do with following fusion, like the story that follows. It could be a fusion remake, or this could all just be a whole bunch of BS that the internet generates constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed Fusion.
I think we all did. I honestly don't think the game needs a remake, but if they cleaned it up, I wouldn't be. I'd like if they just did a nice cleaned up remake of it, just to have it, super high HD. I wouldn't be mad about it.
Right.
And yes, I would give them money again.
Yeah, I think the cart that I have of Fusion is a repro, so I'd pay money for an official one.
Right. Especially if you could play it on your Switch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's all we got for news. Got some game anniversaries we can go over here for January 2020. Crazy Taxi.
Nice.
Turned 20. For its Dreamcast release specifically. 20th anniversary for that.
Did you ever play that in the arcade?
No, I see when that was a new game, like I didn't have an arcade where I lived.
Okay. We had I'm pretty sure we played this at Six Flags New Orleans. We had access to a theme park nearby, and they had it, and it was nice.
Nice.
I've only played the Dreamcast version. I've seen it in arcades, but I've never actually sat down and played it.
See, I think I've only played the GameCube version, which I believe is the Dreamcast version, just on GameCube.
Right.
Let's see what else. We have The Sims turned 20. Wow. I think I've played The Sims twice.
I played a fair bit of the original PS2 release, but I've never gotten really deep into the game.
Mario Party 2 also turned 20.
Now that one I've played a ton of. Like,
I actually just played that with my brother a few weeks ago. It was a nice throwback. Good stuff. Bust-A-Move has turned 25 as of the 13th. Wow.
I'm still pissed off about Bust-A-Move because like 2 years ago, I bought it from a car boot sale and it didn't have the disc inside. And I should have checked. It's my fault, but it's also the seller's fault. And that just pissed me off. The PS1 version.
Legend of Zelda Minish Cap turned 15.
Nice. Very good game.
Very good game. And who here has played Legacy of Kain?
I have it for Dreamcast. I haven't played it.
I have played Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain. Is that the same one?
Yep.
Yeah, I had that for the PS1. I never got particularly far in it. But I played like a few hours of it.
Well, it turned 20 last week, so...
Oh, cool. I ought to go back to that at some point. I've still got it on PS1.
Gosh, just some of these games, like I think about it, it's like, oh yeah, that game, and it's like it turned 20 years old. It's like, Jesus, what? What happened? And not quite retro yet, maybe. I don't know, 10 years old? That means the first one's even a little bit older. That was a really good game. I actually never played this one, but No More Heroes 2 turned 10. And No More Heroes was excellent. For those, yeah, that's pretty close. 10 years. We're almost to the point where that's just definitely retro. Or are we counting the Wii yet?
I mean, we should be at some point.
You're pretty quick, because like the Wii was what, released in 2007?
Yeah. So we're coming up at that point where it should be considered.
We're right there. I almost want to consider it anyway, just so we can play Mario Galaxy.
Right?
Can we consider just Mario Galaxy retro? Get that moving on. I think that ties of anniversaries. I mean, there's not really anything else that's I can't think of anything else, and I don't see anything else here either. Not retro, but Bayonetta turned 10 as well, since we mentioned it just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
God, Bayonetta came out 10 years ago?
Crazy.
Like, I remember when that was a new game, people were like, oh, it's so good. And it's just like, yeah, it's a glamour brawler. It's insane, but I think people were just happy because they got to beat people up as a sexy, sexy lady witch.
Right.
Which is not a complaint. Well, with news and announcements out of the way, we're going to have a quick musical interlude, and as of right now, I'm going to hand the reins over to Matt, because this is a console special episode, and it was Matt's pick.
Okay, so we're starting off this year with our second round of console specials, and I'm immediately cheating because this isn't a console, but it is very, very definitely retro. We are talking this month about the ZX Spectrum. Now,
ZX
this
for people who are stateside,
right?
Yeah, or the ZX Spectrum if you want to be kind of like super wrong. But the ZX Spectrum came out in 1982 by a company called Sinclair Research, named after the creator of the products, Clive Sinclair. It was the sequel to the ZX80 and the ZX81 systems, which kind of popularized home computing, and was they were like some of the first home computers. But it was the ZX Spectrum, which came out in 82, which really, really kind of lit a fire. And it's thought of as being the Kickstarter for the UK IT industry. It was massive, and it wasn't just taken up by businesses. Like the ZX80 and ZX81 were mainly kind of like business machines, but the ZX Spectrum caught on with gamers as well and programmers. And it just became this massive, huge phenomenon. The original versions of it came with either 16K or 48K RAM. I mean, 16 kilobytes of RAM is... you probably couldn't put a single letter in a notepad file and have it come to 16K. But back then, you could do kind of like, 16K, you couldn't do a lot, really. 48K, you could start doing some interesting stuff. And later models ended up having 128K, which is where all the really impressive stuff started to come out. But you have the console wars, Sega versus Nintendo. Well, a bit earlier than that, you had the home computer wars, the Spectrum versus Commodore 64. Now, I never personally knew anyone who had a Commodore 64, but you still had this kind of like rivalry. I think a lot of it was just played up by the media, by the games magazines, just to kind of like sell magazines and stuff like that. Because the Commodore 64 was never massive in the UK. It was big in the US, where the Spectrum didn't really have much of a foothold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually going to say, it almost sounds like a Nintendo Sega thing, wholly, where Sega was pretty big over in the UK and Europe as a whole. And Sega was big over here, but like Nintendo was just dominating, and Nintendo didn't really matter in the UK in the 80s. No one really cared. There wasn't a whole revival. It just wasn't a huge name.
Even Nintendo didn't care.
Yeah, even Nintendo didn't care. Nintendo still doesn't care. But yeah, but the Commodore was really big over here.
Yeah, the Commodore 64 is the, I don't know, PC computer or, PC console hybrid. Like that's the one I had heard about when I was younger.
In the 80s, the Commodore was the defining gaming computer. Like, it was the first gaming computer.
Yeah.
And I don't even think they sold the Spectrum over here.
It might have been a little bit, but not
enough.
Yeah.
It's just really fun that you drew those two parallels, because they're like, actually, it's a super good comparison.
They did kind of like have their own markets, but you did still hear quite often about this rivalry. Personally, the rivalries that I remember were which Spectrum magazine you actually subscribed to, because it was a big thing back then. It was certainly a thing for disc-based consoles as well, that you'd have magazines and they'd have cover games on them. Mm-hmm. In the disc-based consoles, it tended to be just demos, but you'd often buy a Spectrum magazine and it will have like full games on the cover tape, as well as kind of like demos for other stuff as well. So the magazine that I personally picked up quite often was Your Sinclair, and a friend of mine, he always picked up Crash magazine, and we just kind of like swap the tapes, or just straight up copy them, because piracy is not really that difficult when you're working with cassette tapes.
So hold up. You say cover tapes. Now, when I think of cover tapes, and this is probably exactly what it is, with like Xbox Magazine and stuff like that back in the day, you would get demo discs slipped into a little sleeve.
Yes.
Packed in plastic. Was it literally just a cassette tape packed in a plastic sleeve?
Well, they came in kind of like the hard plastic cases.
But like with the magazine, it would be packed in.
Yes.
That is outstanding. Like, the visual in my head, that's just fantastic. I love it.
It would literally be kind of like stuck on with adhesive onto the front of the magazine, with a little bit of tape to keep the case closed.
Wonderful.
Nice. And I've got a huge amount of these cover tapes as well. I've got a fair few magazines, but I've got loads of these cover tapes.
I was saying, magnetic storage lasts so long. It lasts so long.
Well, until it doesn't.
Mm.
Well, I mean, every storage medium is going to break down, but magnetic's probably the best one, as long as you keep it away from, magnets.
Magnets.
Yeah. So it'd be pretty easy to take those and oh, these are getting pretty old. I better copy it a couple times and put them in the time vault, because everyone has a time vault.
Yeah, the thing is with cassette-based software as well, because it's audio, it's really easy to archive. You literally just copy the audio into like a computer or something like that.
Yep.
And with most of the Spectrum models that you can plug like an input in where you would plug in the cassette recorder, you can just plug in your computer and just play the games from that into the Spectrum, which I can't personally do that on my model because my model Spectrum actually has the tape player built in, so it doesn't have like an audio input. But there are adapters available that can convert that into like a cable thing that you can plug into the computer.
Well, okay, so could you then take all your audio files and load them onto your phone or iPod?
Yeah.
And then get one of those digital cassette converters and plug that in there, and then just play the game off of your phone. You could do that.
Yeah, there are actually apps to like play Spectrum audio.
What I'm saying is, you could just be like, you could take your Spectrum the audio from one of your Spectrum games. Well, I guess it'd just be the Spectrum game because it's audio storage, and just put that in like your playlist, and then plug in one of those old cassette digitizers for playing in your radio, like in your car stereo when you don't have an actual CD player or
aux cable
or aux cable.
Oh yeah,
that would work. That would work.
Yeah, they are available. There are companies that do them. There are like quite a few different third-party add-ons made recently for the Spectrum. Like you've got SD card things that act as like kind of like a disk drive that you can just put that in, and yeah, it's still supported by the community today. I mean, that's how big of an impact that it had. You know, there is still a massive ZX Spectrum community, which you can't say for a lot of other home computers. I mean, it's kind of there for the Commodore 64. It's not so much there for stuff like the Amstrad CPC, Acorn Electron, stuff like that. But for the Spectrum, it is still really, really well supported. I mean, even one of the games that we're covering this episode had a new version released last year. I mean, fan made, obviously, but you know, it is still very much supported, and there are so many emulators out there. It's like so easy to kind of like get these. And if you go to like World of Spectrum website, there's literally thousands and thousands of games that you can download for free, like probably quite illegally, to be honest. But they're there, and you can go get them, and you kind of like have an instant library of thousands and thousands of games. But I know you two didn't really have experience with the Spectrum.
No. Now, honestly, the most experience I ever had with the Spectrum, the first experience I had with the Spectrum was actually in the pilot episode we did.
Yeah, with Horace Goes Skiing.
Horace Goes Skiing and DJ Puff. Which was terrible. Like, it hurt my eyes so much.
Horace Goes Skiing is a good game.
No, Horace Goes Skiing is solid, but DJ Puff was not.
Nah.
And we played a couple of them. Obviously, just last month we did RoboCop. And we've had a couple others popped in there before, and I believe they have all been, much like Adam liked to throw in Saturn games, you like to throw in Spectrum games.
Yeah.
And that's it. I didn't even know what the ZX Spectrum was before we started this, so
I knew of it, but I knew it basically as, you know, the one that wasn't the Commodore 64.
The one that wasn't the not Commodore.
Yeah.
So you don't really kind of like have the nostalgic thing that I kind of like do for this.
Not one bit.
For this system.
No, that for me would be the SNES.
It's funny because like some of my earliest video game experiences involved playing games on PC. We had an old Gateway 2000 computer back in the day. It originally had Windows 3.1.
Oh, man.
I remember when we upgraded to Windows 95, and it was a huge deal. And the dude who did this insanely expensive upgrade to the computer was just, I remember vividly when he was done, he said, "You'll never have to upgrade your computer ever again." And that was in 1990. That's probably like 1996, maybe 1995, 1996. And it was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I did a lot of, I did a lot of PC gaming. I played a lot of games on PC, so I have like an appreciation for retro PC systems and just old computers. I actually want to go ahead and build like a Windows 95 machine and a Windows 98 machine.
Nice. Did you ever play a MUD?
MUD?
Multi-user dungeon.
No.
Okay. It was basically the like the progenitor of MMOs.
My neighbor was super into like they really didn't console, they did all PC. And this was in the late 90s, and that's probably where I played the most StarCraft, Command and Conquer, and Warcraft. Played that a lot over there. That was a good time. Yeah, no, but I have absolutely no nostalgia for the ZX Spectrum. I never even have a Commodore, so I don't have anything for that either. There's that whole, like, any PC doing from the 80s, I've got nothing. Partially because I wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
Secret. Right there, don't tell nobody.
It's a secret to everyone.
But I have an appreciation for it. Actually, because a while back, this might have been a year or two ago now, they were releasing a ZX Spectrum quote-unquote mini, or a ZX Spectrum Classic.
Oh, the little handheld thing. Yeah, that there was so much shitty stuff going on behind the scenes with that. A lot of backers didn't get their copies. There was accusations of fraud. Yeah, that was not a thing that you wanted to have backed.
Oh, so that went south. I did not know.
It did. They did. Completely different group of people did something called ZX Spectrum Next, which was also a Kickstarter thing, and it's basically kind of like you have the C64 full size version which just came out.
Right.
It's basically that kind of thing. It's a ZX Spectrum with enhancements. It doesn't completely function as an original ZX Spectrum. It's got these enhancements in it. It's got SD card drives and acceleration, stuff like that. It is very, very expensive. I don't actually believe it's available commercially yet. I think it's still only available to backers, but it's something that I would really like to get my hands on.
Like a proper update to a classic piece of hardware.
Yeah.
Now, and again, because we've talked about the ZX before, and it's been a minute since we've had like a good conversation about the ZX at all. You said that you've done a little bit of development back in the day. You've programmed a little bit.
Development is probably a strong word for it. Basically BASIC, the programming language that ZX Spectrum used, Commodore 64, a lot of systems used BASIC.
I mean, all of them did at one point.
And it is a really kind of like easy to use programming language. And basically anyone, I'm going to stop saying basically, I promise, because the Spectrum, as well as kickstarting kind of like the UK IT industry, it also kickstarted bedroom programmers. That really was kind of like this movement of a lot of people just making games on their own in a bedroom using BASIC and selling them to publishing companies and making a hell of a lot of money off it. So a lot of the people that had ZX Spectrums would try and learn BASIC and try and make stuff of their own. My personal experience with it is mostly just copying programs into the Spectrum from magazines, because a lot of magazines, they would have programs that you could just literally like type into the Spectrum and then run them, and you'd have kind of like a simple game. Obviously, nothing too advanced because you'd have like a book length worth of code to type in. But I did try my hand at my own custom stuff, and I think the one game that I actually finished, it didn't really have any graphics apart from like 3 black rectangles, I think, and those represented doors, and you had to choose one of the doors. One of the doors would allow you to progress, the other 2 would lead to certain death. And once you got through that, I think there was another like 5 doors or something, and you had to choose the right one. And I think there was another 5 after that. And the thing is, it was always randomized which one would actually work. So there was no skill involved whatsoever. There was a very, very, very small chance that you'd actually get through to the end. But it was all kind of like based on luck. And that was kind of like the height of my programming knowledge. I could do that reliably, but I couldn't do anything involving graphics, sprites, or anything like that, really. The game has since been lost to the ages. It was on a cassette at some point. God knows where it is now. It's probably in a landfill somewhere. But it wasn't so much a game as just you just had to be very lucky and guess the right thing 3 times in a row. So it wasn't really a game as such.
Just like real life.
No,
that's still cool, and it also means that you are the only game developer
On the show.
on the show. Officially an expert.
Well, Steven makes board games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep forgetting about that. I need to ask you more about that.
Well, I mean, it's game singular currently, but
Well, I mean, Steven makes board game.
I mean, a credit is a credit, so.
Right. I'll have to get more information about that from that when we not now.
Right.
So yeah, no, the ZX Spectrum was quite revolutionary. It was a revolutionary piece of hardware.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
It is the fairest way to say that. It is not an exaggeration to say that.
No, I mean, Clive Sinclair, the creator, ended up getting knighted for services to British industry, but it was basically for the Spectrum. I mean, everyone remembers him for the Spectrum.
Right.
But I think that's enough about the history of the Spectrum and my personal history with it. I think it's time to jump into some admittedly terrible, terrible music, and we will jump into our first game. Again, I would like to apologize for that horrible music. It is literally the only music in the game. It doesn't actually play through the game. It is just on the opening screen, and then there's like no music whatsoever. But the first game is Chucky Egg. Now, this is kind of like a one-screen platformer. You play as, I believe, a farmer, and you have to collect eggs hidden throughout. Well, they're not hidden; they're like in plain sight. But you have these eggs that you have to collect to move on to the next stage, and there are a bunch of chickens that do not want you to collect these eggs because they don't know how farms work. I mean, they're chickens; they're not particularly intelligent.
Are they chickens or ostriches?
They are chickens.
Oh, okay, because they kind of look like ostriches.
Graphically, it's not brilliant. They do kind of look like ostriches. But yeah, the cover of the in fact, looking at the cover of the game at the minute, the farmer is actually stamping on the eggs. There's like a big boot coming down, like stamping on an egg, with a chicken looking quite angry at him. I'm pretty sure that's kind of like some artistic license there, because he is definitely collecting the eggs. But yeah, you just jump around on all these platforms. There are platforms, there are ladders, and there were just eggs littered around. And you have to collect these eggs and avoid the chickens. If you hit a chicken, you'll die. And it's a really, really simple concept. It's not really something you can go completely in depth with in a description. I mean, it is literally just what I've described.
Right.
It came out in 1983, which is not long after the Spectrum actually came out. It was also on the BBC Micro and the Dragon, but it was ported later on to the Commodore 64, Acorn Electron, MSX, Tatung Einstein, which I haven't even heard of before, Amstrad CPC, and the Atari 8-bit consoles. And I believe a remake of it is actually on iOS at the minute, if I'm not mistaken. So it is a game that was like really actually quite popular. It ended up being rated number 13 in the top 100 games of all time by Your Sinclair magazine. I think it kind of like you do have games that are like very in depth and are really kind of like in-depth experiences, and I think there is something to be said for something that is really, really simple like this, where you just have like a single screen thing, kind of like Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong isn't really an in-depth game, but it is something that people do enjoy playing because the gameplay element is just fun to play. And Chuck Egg's kind of like in that similar kind of vein. There are 100 levels of it, which I'm pretty sure none of us here have actually completed the game. But yeah, there are 100 levels if you want to actually play through all of them. What did you guys actually think about it first?
Well, my first impression was that I didn't know they were chickens. I genuinely thought it was an ostrich farm because the eggs are big and also the chickens look like ostriches in the game. And then at some point, because it was very clear, like, oh, I have to get the eggs. I still don't know what the purple things are, the little purple pyramids.
You've got like a timer in the top corner.
Yeah.
When you pick those up, that kind of like stops the timer for a certain amount of time. I'm not entirely sure how long it actually stops it for, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it does.
Okay, yeah, so you're picking up golden eggs from an ostrich farm, and occasionally it seems like not every single time or not at any specific time, I couldn't tell. Quacksar, the arcane god of destruction up in the top left corner, will come out after you.
Yeah, I think from like around 10 levels in or something like that, that guy will just come and just start flying around the level that you got to avoid.
Yeah, this huge duck. I didn't think it was a bad game. I thought the sound effects were really annoying. That seems to be very much a ZX Spectrum thing.
Yeah, it is essentially a collection of all of the different fart noises that the Spectrum can make.
And I thought, I'm like, was it supposed to be like gross noises?
That is just what some early Spectrum games sounded like. Just 6 very distinct, different kinds of fart.
I felt like the death music could have been shorter.
Oh yeah,
like
do 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 do. Yeah,
like you die and it takes forever to get back in. My first experience with it was what the hell are the controls, because it doesn't tell you anything. So I had to go through that. But I mean, once I got around to actually being able to play it, it was okay. I mean, like you said, it's a nice, simple little game. You just gotta, get the hang of it.
My comparison is going to be Atari, and just because of that era, I've played Atari more than any other platform for games like this, and it has super hardcore Atari vibes, which is not a bad thing at all. But yeah, no. So and very briefly, maybe I could have mentioned this earlier. I'm assuming it just had to do with the amount of RAM available, but like some games on the Spectrum, it's like either you have graphics or you have music or you have more colors. Like they very much had to allocate what it had to one thing to make it run right, it seems.
Yeah, basically, with there being different models of the spectrum, you had like 16K, 48K, 128K.
Yeah.
A lot of games, well, most games wouldn't run on 16K. So you had like between 48K and 128K for most of them. And because a lot of people did have this 48K, they kind of had to allow for that. They couldn't really do a hell of a lot that would push the boundaries if they wanted people with the older machines to actually be able to play it. Which is why a lot of times a game would come with like 48K version on one side and 128K version on the other side. And the 128K version would more than likely have like music in game or other graphical enhancements that you just couldn't do on the 48K machine. So they kind of like got around it that way. But at the point that this particular game came out, the 48K was the only one available. So that would have had to have been kind of like squeezed into that small amount of memory.
Okay, that makes sense. It was the 80s after all.
Yeah, and this was an early game for the Spectrum as well. Like I say, it came out within like the first year.
Also, the one thing that jumped to my eyes instantly was the Spectrum color palette.
Yeah.
It was like PTSD flashbacks to DJ Puff.
It can only really do like 8 colors or something like that. I think there are like 8 primary colors that you can set a sprite to be, well, a pixel to be rather. So there isn't a hell of a lot of variety, to be honest, but it's kind of something you get used to.
Yeah, but God, like that magenta and lemon yellow. Can't say it's not vivid.
No, the with the, again, limitations of the Spectrum graphically and stuff like that, a lot of games, if they did try to use like quite a lot of color, the Spectrum had a lot of color bleed basically on the sprites and into the background. If a sprite like moved across the background, a lot of that color would bleed. Which is why you do see a lot of kind of like monochrome games, which we spoke about last month with RoboCop, how it is like a monochrome game. It's black and white, then it's kind of like a variation on pink and stuff like that, because they wanted to avoid this kind of color bleed.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
But this particular game, because there isn't like any background, it's just kind of like a black background. It's not something you really notice unless the two sprites kind of like intersect, unless you do like walk into one of the chickens. You're not going to see that color bleed because they are all very well defined sprites.
Wacky.
But I mean, the important thing though, I mean, graphics aside, primitiveness aside, did you both have fun playing it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, no, as far as a very straightforward get the things game, it was very good. Like it's solid. It's not super wonky. Like I'm trying to think of a game to compare it to where like you have to be insanely precise. Like climbing ladders was not like you have to be pixel perfect or else you just don't.
Right.
Well, even even like the Donkey Kong arcade, which is what I wanted to compare this to, mostly because you're climbing a lot of ladders, is super tight on the ladders. Like you have to be on the ladder to climb it. You don't have a lot of room to avoid enemies and obstacles. It's super tight. This isn't quite that punishing. No, I think it's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. Little hard on the eyes, but other than that,
it is one that we played quite a lot when I was a kid. It is like one of my favorite games on the system, despite how simple it is. And it's one that I would kind of like load up quite a lot.
Is there a way that you can like save your is there any possible way to save your progress or load in later into the game?
No.
Ooh,
no.
So you just have to sit through. If you wanted to finish, you have to marathon 100 levels.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless you used save states. There were I'm just reading on the Wikipedia page for the game now. I'll just quote what it says here. There was an official, apparently A&F approved, A&F were the company that made the game, Chucky Egg upgrade on the BBC and Electron machines called Chucky. This was published by a small company called Bit Twiddlers and gave the player the ability to start at any level. So a version of this game existed where you could start at any point, but it wasn't the original official version that you could do that on. It was only on that one BBC and Electron version called Chucky.
Okay. Wonder what the speedrunning community looks like on this.
Well, I did actually look at some YouTube videos, and there are complete playthroughs running at around about an hour and a half.
That's probably one of the longest Spectrum games that I've seen so far.
Yeah, it does. It does have 100 levels, like I said, and like a lot of Spectrum games, as soon as you finish level 100, boom, right back to level 1.
Right back to level 1.
And it just loops. A lot of Spectrum games just loop.
No fanfare, no congratulations, no cake.
No, because people wanted to get like the most out of the RAM, so a lot of the fanfare was just kind of like set aside in favor of kind of like being able to do more with the game.
The real treasure was the friends you made along the way.
But honestly, I think that's pretty much all we can really say about Chucky Egg, because it is super simple. But yeah, fun game. It is available on mobile devices. Super Chucky Egg, which came out in 2017. You can buy that on your mobile if you want. And I'd say give it a look.
Is that iPhone and Android?
It just says mobile devices here. I'm assuming it's both.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I've seen adverts for an iOS version.
Yeah, it's $2.99 on iOS.
Yeah, so not bad. It's probably, while you mentioned that, actually, a good time to mention that a lot of these games were budget games, and this probably would have been around about $2.99 when it came out. That's just how much a lot of games just retailed for at the time. I'm not sure exactly the amount that this retailed for, but $2.99 would have been round about the price point for it.
Cheap.
Yeah, a lot of games were. So that was Chucky Egg. We will take a quick musical break in which I will again apologize for the terrible music, and we'll jump on to the next game. Okay, so the second game that I have for this Spectrum special is Batman the Movie, which came out on quite a lot of systems back in 1989. It came out on the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, Commodore 64, MS-DOS, MSX, and the Spectrum. All came out pretty much around the same time. The Spectrum one is the one that I grew up with. I know that the other versions, well, at least like the Amiga Amstrad version, would have been a lot better. But this is the one I had, and I had quite a lot of fun with it. Basically, it's more a collection of mini games than one long coherent game. I say long. The game's actually super short.
Super short.
But you start off as Batman in a kind of platform. I'm not entirely sure you'd call it a platform section because you don't jump. You use your grappling hook to get around and go up and down to different parts of the level, and it's essentially a maze. Basically, you're working through the Axis chemical plant, and you've got to make it to the end to find Jack Napier and then knock him into a vat of chemicals, and you being beset by all of his goons like throughout. The second level, you're driving your Batmobile, and it's a terrible level. I'm just going to say it straight out. It's a horrible level. And then you get into kind of like a puzzle game where you have to identify the various components that the Joker's using for his Smilex chemical. So you basically pick 3 chemicals and it will tell you how many you've got right, and you've just got like a minute time limit to do that. Then you've got another real terrible level where you're flying around in the Batwing trying to cut the cords of all of the Joker's balloons, because the balloons have got Smilex in them. And then the 5th level, you're back to another like platforming mazy kind of thing in Gotham Cathedral, where you've got to stop the Joker from escaping as well and knock him off the building to finish the game. So yeah, this is a bit of a hodgepodge, to be honest. And when I was a kid, I really liked the first level, and I couldn't get past level 2. I could never get past level 2. It was just too hard, because you have to make these really tight turns in the Batmobile, and if you miss 3 of them, then you kind of like lose a life, and you just have to start again. And there was like so many cars you got to avoid as well, and I could just never get past it. And even as an adult, I've never got past the Batwing section. It is those sections are just really, really horrible to play, and you just take too much damage from a lot of random stuff. But the first level is the one that I'm familiar with, and it's kind of fun. Honestly, replaying it for this, I honestly didn't really enjoy myself going back to it. It's not quite as good as I remember it. It really doesn't hold up that well. And maybe the other versions do. I ought to try like the other versions, like the Amiga version or something at some point. But this didn't really capture me this time around. I don't know. It just, I guess, growing older, it's just, I've just lost the ability to enjoy even the first level, because it's just like a maze, and I find it more annoying than fun to play it, to be honest. What do you guys think about it?
I rather enjoyed the first and, well, I guess Ace Chemical and the Clock Tower.
Yeah.
I liked it. I was horribly, horribly unfond of the Batmobile stage. Just again, it's hard to tell exactly how much space you have between vehicles, and it's easy to bump stuff and just take that damage. It wasn't a whole lot of fun. I was really confused, and I'm ashamed of this because I just watched Batman a couple weeks ago when I was putting together the big Lego Batmobile. The just a mini game really, where you're trying to figure out the formula. I had no idea what was going on for a second, because it's like, okay, you go and fight some crime, you drive to the Batcave, and now it's time for Batman to clean up because there's like soap and toothbrush. And I'm like, what is the point of this game? Why am I playing shower time with Batman, apparently?
Yeah, the game kind of like bases itself on certain scenes from the film, but it doesn't give any context for them whatsoever. So if you haven't seen the film, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and I had just watched the movie too, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? Why am I matching soap and toothpaste? I'm a fake nerd. The Batwing section wasn't too terrible. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't like awful. The fucking balloons that bop up and down is what'll wreck you if you catch them when they're low.
Yeah, I've never gotten past that stage.
But the rest of the stage, that's literally the worst part. Is like, oh well, you have to catch enough balloons. You have to make sure you don't catch the bopping balloons when they're low. The helicopters and stuff are just pretty generic obstacles. I don't know, I got a really heavy Battletoads turbo tunnel thing going on, and I got really good at the turbo tunnel. So the movement and stuff was, not too bad.
Yeah, it is. It is a similar kind of thing now, thinking about it, isn't it?
A little bit. Side-scrolling race scene. But I know I really liked the mechanics of the bat grapple. Yeah, it'd be the bat grapple. Where you're hooking up to the next platform and you can swing around, and for some reason when you throw your batarangs, they're sideways, like they're not flying straight like a batarang would.
Yeah, I do like the mechanics of those levels, but the thing that annoyed me is the maze aspect of them.
Oh, they're so obtuse. It's awful. And I believe, this is the game that you weren't able to play, right, Steven? Was Batman?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was just my emulator or the ROM that I got or what, but my default controls didn't have left for some reason. Like, forward, back, and right still worked, but left wasn't working. I tried to remap to my arrow keys, and I don't know if it's because I don't have a standard keyboard, but they all mapped to shift, so I couldn't go anywhere. So, yeah, I no idea what happened with it, but I wasn't able to play this game.
It's a shame, too, because honestly, I mean, I know, Matt, you said it wasn't, going back wasn't that great, but as me coming into first Spectrum games, like, just my first experience on basically all of these, I really liked it. In fact, out of the 3 that you issued to us, I kind of liked this one the best. Music, and it had the best music out of all 3 of them because it actually had music.
Yes, the only one that had music while you were playing.
And that's what I was kind of referring to last time, is Chucky Egg didn't really have it had like a little bit in the beginning, and then the game was just sound effects, whereas Batman was fully loaded with music and sound effects all the way through.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this is one of the examples where the 48K version didn't have the music while you were playing, but the 128K version did, if I remember correctly.
Makes sense. I mean, I liked it, and I kind of wish you had wish you had been able to play it, Steven, because I mean, it's a bit chunky given what it's on,
right?
But overall, I actually enjoyed this. Like, and I kind of for me, I didn't expect to say that I kind of wish it had more levels.
Yeah, if you're playing like start to finish, it's a 20-minute game.
Yeah, it's very short. Like, you can die a lot and still be done in an hour.
I mean, speaking of like dying a lot in the game, taking damage, one of the things that has really kind of like stuck with me since I was a kid was the health bar. I think is really inventive. Basically, it's a picture of Batman, and as you take damage, it slowly like morphs into a picture of the Joker instead, which I thought was a really inventive way of doing it.
So I thought initially, because the first thing is like boot up, it's like, oh, so it's gonna have it's gonna be kind of like Doom, where the more damage you take, the more beat up he's gonna look. And then I noticed like it was shifting down and the face was changing, and I was like, oh, okay, so actually what happens is he's being demasked. And then when I died, it was like, oh, actually it's just the Joker. Who'd have thought? No, but yeah, that was really nice. I was gonna bring that up, and then you brought it up.
You can definitely tell the 7 years of improvement in development over this and Chucky Egg.
Oh, yeah.
Because they did try a lot of stuff with this game. Personally, I didn't think they really came together. But they kind of have to be commended for trying to do a lot of stuff. And it did sell really well as well. It was a really popular game. Let me have a look. It was number 1 in the Spectrum charts for February 1990. And it got Game of the Year in Crash Magazine.
I mean, I believe it. Mega Man. I don't know why I'm looking at a copy of Mega Man on my desk. Batman, the original Mega Man. Well, the original Mega Man villain. It's Batman and Joker Man. Tim Burton's Batman was a smash hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So at that point, they were able to just merchandise anything, and it was gonna sell.
yeah.
It's still my favorite Batman movie.
Oh yeah, it's mine too, easily.
I disagree, but
What's your favorite?
my favorite is probably Dark Knight.
I'm Bane.
No, that's Rises.
Oh, nobody knows who I was until I put on the mask or cared. It's terrible.
Yeah, that one was a little goofy, but I actually really liked Dark Knight. I haven't seen the original, Tim Burton's Batman that many times. I've seen Returns a whole lot more because that was the one I had.
Right.
But yeah, I liked the Nolan films better than the Burton.
I gotta say, man, because I just watched 89 Batman, he kills a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Like, between that and Batman Returns, I swear to God, he just murks like 30 people.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman Returns, he blows someone up with a grenade.
Yeah, where he puts the dynamite in their belt and kicks them down, and then kicks them through the skylight. Or I think it's a skylight, and well, he just throws the one dude down the bell tower at the end of the first movie. He just he hits the parade float with the Gatling guns from the Batwing. Hoses all those dudes. He is fully intent on killing the Joker with the missiles, but he misses.
Yeah, a lot of the movie Batman's kind of murdery. I mean, Ben Affleck in his Batman film, he murdered a lot of people in that film. There was a lot of explosions and
and like when it came down to the new Batman flicks, it was where movies. It's like, oh, he's pretty murdery. It's like Batman doesn't kill. It's like, actually,
yeah.
Let's take a look at a history here, especially in cinema. No, it turns out he does it a lot.
I mean, in the comics, you could get away with that argument of, oh, Batman doesn't kill. Not so much in the movies.
No, and even you can't even go that far back in the comics. Like, yeah, after a while, it's like, oh, Batman's not going to kill anymore. But it's like he was like really bloodthirsty before.
Yeah, like the whole point is that he was a dark hero. Like, yeah, come on, guys.
But yeah, it's just like, yeah, when I watched those, it's like, wow, I don't remember him killing that many people. But and in Batman Returns, I know we're gonna get sidetracked. Last one, the one dude, he pulls up on like the little shop, and there's the dude in the devil costume, and he's torching the shop, and he breathes some fire at him, and he spins the Batmobile around, and then just torches him with the afterburner.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, he died. He's not getting away from that one.
Yeah.
Those are 4th degree burns.
So yeah.
Anyway, okay. Batman and Batman Returns, pretty good movies. Batman on the Spectrum, I kind of liked it. Like, I might have liked it more than any other Spectrum game thus far.
Even more than, say, RoboCop?
That's pretty tight. I did like RoboCop. I will say it's about as good as RoboCop.
I mean, when I was a kid, this and RoboCop probably got about the same amount of play. I just happen to think that RoboCop still holds up today and this game doesn't. Which is disappointing, really, because I had this nostalgic memory in my head of this game, which was just kind of like completely shattered, really.
It'd be like that sometimes.
But yeah, it is what it is. At least one of us enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it.
And Stephen, if you're able to sort out your emulator issues, I'd say give it a go. See if you'd like it as well.
Yeah, I'll take another crack at it.
Okay, so with that out of the way, we're going to move on to the final game. And again, apologies. This is probably the worst music that you're going to hear in this episode. This title theme for this game is absolutely awful. So I apologize, but we're going to take a quick musical break and then we'll jump into the final game. Okay, so the final game in the Spectrum Special is a weird one because it's based on a real person, and I'm pretty sure the events in this game probably didn't happen to him in real life. But this is Bruce Lee, the video game. It was originally developed for the Atari consoles, or the Atari computers rather, and it also came out for the Apple II and Commodore 64, and it was later converted to the Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC. This may in fact be my favorite game on the Spectrum. If not, it's like really, really high up there. You play as Bruce Lee in that famous life event where he was chased around while collecting lanterns by a ninja and a sumo wrestler. It's in his autobiography, if you take a look. And it's kind of like almost a puzzle platformer. You go around collecting these lanterns, and there are various traps around that you have to avoid, whilst also avoiding or killing the two enemies that are after you. It's a rather colourful game for the Spectrum. There's a lot of nice reds and yellows and blues. And again, kind of like Chucky Egg, this doesn't have music playing while you're actually in the game, but it does have the awful intro music that you just heard. This came out in 1985, so about halfway between the other two games that we've played, and you can kind of see the progression there. It looks better than Chucky Egg. It doesn't look as good as Batman. And yeah, it is. Again, it's one that's quite simple, so it's difficult to really go into like a in-depth description of it. It is basically you're playing Bruce Lee going around collecting lanterns and avoiding shit, really. What did you guys think about it?
The game sort of beat my ass. Like, the ninja doesn't play. Like, he will just wreck you if you let him.
So was that a ninja? Because it looks like a dude with a 2x4.
It was either a ninja or a dude with a 2x4.
Yes, it's meant to be a ninja.
It was a ninja with a 2x4. There you go.
I mean, I actually liked this one. I would say this is probably unseated. Horace Go Skiing is my favorite Spectrum game.
Nice.
I mean, it played smooth, but just it wasn't easy. Like, I kept getting caught by them, and it's just like I found myself in a couple situations like where I had to hop down, and I couldn't. Like, I hopped down, and I was gonna die. Maybe I'm just bad at the Bruce Lee Life Simulator.
So how far did each of you get?
I mean, so I ran around the first level for a long time before I realized I was supposed to be collecting things. And then when I finally figured that out, I couldn't get them all before they got me again. And I was just like, okay, I get it. So I don't know how much there is, but I didn't get very far.
Oh, there's a lot more after that, to be honest.
I was gonna say, I got a few screens in where it was like, oh, collect lanterns, and it just seemed like it was more collecting lanterns with the same two guys trying to get me.
So none of you actually went in the hole in the floor then to the next section?
Evidently not.
I got down to the floor, but at that point it was still just like they added more like climbing stuff, but it was still more just get stuff and avoid people or fight them. Like, how far does the hole go?
There's quite a lot of game there. Probably about half an hour worth of game. Well, no, probably more like 20 minutes or so.
Oh, so it's not that long. It's another short one.
Did you get to any of like the traps, like the spikes and the waterfalls that you can climb up and down, or the like projectile things that shoot across? Okay, so that was a waterfall. I thought it was supposed to be like a plant or something. Well, I'm assuming it's a waterfall. It changes direction like occasionally when you pick up lanterns, So I think it's meant to be a waterfall.
So, yeah, I had no idea what it was. All I know is that you could climb it, because that makes sense.
Yeah, there is
Well,
quite
who am I to judge? Bruce Lee was a tremendous athlete. I bet he could climb a waterfall.
yeah, there is quite a lot to the game once you get into it. There are a lot of like different rooms that you got to navigate. It's all kind of like single screen stuff for the most part, and each screen has got like different kind of like traps or obstacles that you got to negotiate. And like I said, the game isn't particularly long. The thing is, with the enemies chasing you, you can just kind of like jump when they're around, and they won't be able to hit you. Like you can literally just completely cheese the enemies, and you just will not take damage from them. Pretty much, you only really need to attack them when they're kind of like directly in front of you in like the direction you're going, and you need to navigate an obstacle where it's probably going to be a bit dangerous to jump. But yeah, they can literally just be cheese, to be honest. And you can use some of the traps to kill them as well.
I did take note, and I thought this was kind of interesting. At one point, because I guess the enemies won't try to bridge gaps very often, or at least the ninja didn't want to. The ninja, I climbed down a ladder, and the ninja went down the ladder after me, and I bridged a gap, and he just stood there, like the sumo fell down, and the ninja just walked up to the ledge and just stood there.
Well, the ninja does usually follow you down.
Well, he followed me down, but he didn't follow me over a gap.
Yeah, they can't actually jump.
Okay.
So they will. Their AI will basically try to get them as close to you as possible. But if there isn't a route to get to you, then they will literally just stand there.
Okay.
And just get like as close as possible.
Pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, but for me, this game kind of like has the right amount of challenge for me, and it is one of those games, kind of like I mentioned with Ghostbusters when we did the horror episode. It's one of those games that I can put on and reliably finish in like under half an hour, and that is just something that I want every now and again. You know, it's all well and good playing games that are like super difficult. Well, I don't really like super difficult games anyway, but having something that you know you can go to and in a short amount of time get to the like finish screen, there is something to be said about that. And this is one of the games that I did do that with quite a lot. And like I said, it is probably my favorite game on the spectrum.
A nice casual romp.
Yeah. It's not too difficult. It's not too easy. I mean, once you know the game, you're not really going to have any issues with it. I mean, the fact that you guys had issues with the enemies, you know, once you kind of like learn how the enemies work and their behavior and stuff like that, like I say, you can just cheese them, and they don't really pose much of an obstacle after that. And once you learn how to navigate all the different traps as well, it's just a fun little platforming adventure.
Yeah, and I mean, like my biggest problem is I ran out of time. Like, I came up on the end of the time I had set aside for this when I was working through this one. So I mean, if I'm gonna go back and put some more time into it. But I mean, I definitely liked this the best of the three.
Yeah, it's just a shame about that intro music.
Yeah, well,
it's like, I don't know if someone just slapped a keyboard or something. It's just discordant and horrible. And there is actually a slightly improved version. I mentioned in the when I was talking about the history of the system that one of the games did actually get an update, and this is the one I was talking about. It's called Bruce Lee RX, which came out last year, and it's kind of like a fan update of it. It's got redone music. redone graphics. It's exactly the same gameplay, but it just looks and sounds nicer. So if you want to check out the game, I would say have a look for that one. It would just be like a little bit easier on the eyes and ears.
Okay. Might slap a link up for that on the Facebook page. For funsies.
And again, this is one of the games that when you get to the end, it does kind of like just loop to the start again. You do actually get a congratulation message, but then once you leave that room, it will just take you to the first room again. But from the second loop onwards, the difficulty is increased. The respawn times for the enemies will actually be shorter.
Oh, okay. That was already a pretty quick turnaround as it was.
But yeah, like I said, it is fun. It is indeed based on a completely 100% true story. That time when Bruce Lee was chased by ninjas and sumo wrestlers while collecting lanterns, which Bruce Lee was fucking mad about lanterns. He loved like going into temples and stealing them and shit.
Well, I mean, really, it's not even so much that was his entire life. He was like combat Indiana Jones, except lanterns instead of artifacts.
And actually, believe it or not, this is actually officially licensed as well.
Oh, really?
Yep, there is a copyright message on the intro game saying Bruce Lee's likenesses, like copyright Linda Lee, like used by permission of Linda Lee.
So, like, likeness is in quotes, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it does look like him on the box.
Well, I was about to say they probably have a picture of him on the box, not so much in game.
Yeah, in game, it's just it's a blob with legs, pretty much. His sprite looks better than the ninja sprite, but barely, only just.
Just barely.
But this is a game that proves that you don't need graphics to have an entertaining game. Like I said, I love playing this, and I'm probably going to record a full playthrough and pop it up on my YouTube channel as well, actually.
Oh, please do. Shoot, do a live stream of that.
I might do. I'll have a look. I definitely want to get some Spectrum content up on my channel. That'd be pretty cool.
With the insane loading sound effects.
Oh, I would probably skip them.
Aw.
Just stick it in an emulator and just skip them.
So, having gone over these games, I'm genuinely interested in the Spectrum just as a piece of hardware. What do they run? Like, if you want to get into an original Spectrum, CX Spectrum, like,
they do tend to be a lot more expensive than consoles. The home computers, like all of the old home computers, tend to be a touch fair more. Bit. Yeah. I'm just looking at some sold listings here. Let's have a look on eBay. So I'm looking at boxed ones here, starting at around about 60, 70. But it kind of depends on the model. The later models are going for a lot more. You're looking at anywhere from like 60 to 100, with some refurbished ones going for like over 100, like 150 odd.
That's not terrible.
Yeah, it's not too bad. The box ones obviously sell for a bit more, but you can probably get a solid setup with games for under 100, depending on which model you go for.
Well, I was about saying, if you can get yourself a cassette recorder, I suppose, or like if you just have an adapter, you don't even need cassettes.
Yeah, I mean, there was one model which had the no, in fact, there were two models that had the tape player built in, so you could get one of those, or you can get your own cassette player or audio player. Like, say, you can stick your phone in it and play it from there. So Yeah, I would say do get the one without the tape player included, because if the tape player does fail on that, then you kind of are out of options. Whereas if you have an external tape player, you can just use any tape player.
Right, you can use any tape player. You can use anything that has an audio plug-in, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture one right now that has the tape player built in. It looks really cool, though.
Oh, it does. I've got the grey one. There was a grey one and a black one with the cassette player.
The data quarter.
Yeah.
And here's a Spectrum Plus 3.
Yeah, that's got a disc drive.
Has a disc drive in it. Fancy.
Yeah, they did do like quite a lot of models. The good thing about the Spectrum over the Commodore 64 is that, like I said, you can just use like a normal audio jack on the Spectrum, whereas the Commodore 64 was a proprietary connection, which you have to use a Commodore 64 tape player on a Commodore 64, unless you buy like a fan-made custom unit that can like plug into that. So that is one of the benefits of the Spectrum over the Commodore 64 there. And the games are like super cheap for the most part as well. I mean, if you're looking for individual games, you're probably going to be paying for a bit, but just look for bundles. Look for bundles of games, and you'll be able to get a solid collection, like really, really cheap. Especially stuff like the cover tapes. Like I said, the cover tapes often had complete games on them, so just get a collection of cover tapes and you've got like an instant collection.
Just right there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? I'm honestly kind of hoping that you dump a few more Spectrum games on us here. And I'm going to look into maybe actually acquiring a piece of original hardware in the near future, just because it'll be nice and unique, especially for my collection, which is all exclusively consoles at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Like I said, if you're, I would personally recommend the 128K Plus,
right?
Which is obviously it's the 128K RAM model that doesn't have the tape player connected. That is the one I go for. That's the one I grew up with. It's not the one that I have now, because like I said, with the Plus 2, if the tape player fails, then
you're boned.
You need to find a way to repair it or get a new system.
Right. And with as expensive as these can get, you don't want a cost to be replacing old hardware. Or trying to fix old hardware. That'd be neato burrito to have in my collection. And then plus I can hear it scream at me when I load a game.
Yeah.
It's criminal. The sound is criminal.
The sound is beautiful. But having said that, I do usually skip it when I emulate them. So, but that's more for time, really.
Turn it on, start screeching. I love you. Mute. Well, okie dokie. I don't really think there's a whole lot more to cover here. I mean, it's a piece of your childhood. It's a piece of history.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, it was my first gaming experience. So it'll always have that.
Oh, no, wait. Is this showing a light gun, too? They had light gun games?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of flipping through stuff here, and that looks like a light gun. It's got a Commodore-style stick, and there's a light gun with it. Neat. Yeah, and it's like you said, oh, we cheated. It's not really a gaming console. I'm seeing a lot of stuff where this was geared heavily for gaming.
Oh yeah, absolutely was. Once it took off.
Oh, there's a James Bond game on it. Well, there's the James Bond action pack.
Yeah, you can get like a whole James Bond edition.
Well, that's fucking cool.
Well, I mean, it's not like the computer itself is James Bond themed, but the pack-in game and the box, kind of like how I've got a Terminator 2 edition of Commodore 64, which there's nothing special about the Commodore 64 itself. it just comes in Terminator 2 box with Terminator 2 game. But yeah, it's just kind of like a themed pack, really.
It's kind of like how Nintendo was packing the Wii U. It's like, oh, it's the Super Mario 3D World Edition. It's just a Wii U with a game. It's not really an edition at all, as it just has a pack-in game.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nintendo. Got
Now the Zelda version of the Wii U was actually different.
Yeah, I know. They'll go fucking 500 miles and 500 miles more to be the game company that went 1,000 miles to give me a Zelda edition. That was a little bit of a stretch there. I don't regret it. Well, if there's not a whole lot more here to say, we've been chatting about the Spectrum here for a while. We've been thoroughly educated. But I think we've just about ready to wrap this all up. Unless I'm missing something.
No, I think we're good.
I think we just done exhausted it. Of course, honestly, Matt, you've done most of the talking here.
Yeah, my voice is kind of like starting to get a bit wrecked now. Honestly.
Gotta get a lozenge.
Mm.
Well, with that being that, I guess all that's really left is to say our goodbyes. Say thank you for tuning in to our 24th episode and the start of season 3. It's kind of a big deal to me. Maybe it's a big deal for all of us.
Yeah, definitely.
And hope you keep tuning in. And we'll just keep going as long as we can.
Yep.
And until as long as we can ends, we'll just say goodbye now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good night.